Hi, I'm Margot McKinnon from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Today I have my friend Jody Swift with me. She's a fellow high school teacher, and we met, when was that? About 2 years ago, maybe? Yeah. Just as you were starting up your Studio Me, your passion, your dream. I want to give Jody a chance to just talk about the studio she's developed, but at the same time, the reason why Jody's here is because she was also she's a high school teacher, teaching psychology, and she has stories to tell about the spirit-dominant learner that I think we need to get out there to the world so that we can have a proper conversation about these kinds of things. So Jody, can you tell me a little bit about your studio?
Sure. So Studio Me is a creative arts, health and wellness and education studio. It is a place where the lifelong learner can come and create any class that they want, as long as they gather 7 people around them, and then we'll help them find a teacher. And then it's also a space where a teacher, practitioner, coach, facilitator could come and offer a class. Share their gift with the world, or share their talent or skill or their lessons that they want to learn. And so it's like a school community concept, but you get to choose your own curriculum.
And we're in Okotoks.
Yes.
So my first session that I did in Jody's studio was on being a spirit-dominant person. Mm-hmm. So that was really interesting to see how that turned out and how people viewed that concept. So that's what we're focusing on today, but we're going to talk mainly about students and if you have a child like that, what to do. So today, before I got here, as we were setting up, you were telling me about some experiences your students wanted to talk about in your high school.
Yeah. So I no longer believe in coincidences. And of course, as I know I'm about to do this interview with you and connect with you, I am finishing off my second class of the morning. And we're talking about social constructs. And we're talking about why we create certain constructs, why things become social norms and things aren't normal. And one of the things that come up is the paranormal in this whole what's not normal concept. And I love to challenge the status quo. And so we talked about why isn't that normal? Like, why don't we talk about it? And one of my students got kind of excited and he was talking about how he hears things and how it creeps him out. And he doesn't even want to talk about it. It's like, whoa, it just creeps me out. And another student was talking about how she sees things, and she's seen people since she was very little. And that, she told her mom that she had an imaginary friend, and his name was June. And forever they had this imaginary friend, and she lived by a graveyard. And one day her and her mom went for a walk in the graveyard, and they found this grave with the name June on it. And so that was kind of the beginning for her. And June used to go on car rides with her and do all these different things with her. And we're just sitting there and listening. And some students are like, whoa, this is so well. But what I found more so than the ones that were a little about it were the amount of students that wanted to contribute. And the amount of students who were talking about, oh, this happened to me, or I hear things, or I see things, or, sometimes I just feel like somebody's in the room with me. And I find that, as a public school teacher, it's a really challenging topic to broach, because I fear that the judgment will be, that's not appropriate curriculum conversation, right? Or to offend someone's beliefs and where they stand. And so instead, I just sat back and listened. And I listened to what they had to say and accepted that what they had to say was truth, because I truly believe it is. And then just smiled at the parallel to some of my stories from my childhood and things that I experienced, like bursting into tears in grade 9 in the middle of my English class and my girlfriend saying to me, "Why are you crying?" And I said to her, "Because my grandmother just died." And she said, "Well, how do you know?" She goes, "Did your mom call?" And this is the day before cell phones, right? This is before cell phones existed. And I said, "No." I said, "She didn't call." I said, "I just know. I just know." And of course, I go home at the end of the day and my mom greets me at the door with a big hug and says, "I've got some sad news." And I said, "Oh, I already know." And I just knew fundamentally that that was truth, right? But it's something that at that point, I realized that I could not tell very many people that story without them judging me or making me feel like I guess nobody really makes me feel anything, but I would choose to feel awkward or weird about it, or that I was out of the norm. And then I'm sitting here listening to these kids, and the one boy was so taken by our conversation. It was very clearly the very first time he was able to tell anybody about hearing the things that he hears. And I said to him, maybe one day you'll be able to find a mentor and develop your skills. And he's like, what skills? And I said, oh, this is a skill. You can develop it, and then you can figure out why it came to you. Why you have it and what's special about that for you, and he was so riveted by our conversation that he actually walked me to the car at the end of the class. He didn't want it to end. And I said to him on the way, this is so in connection with our conversation around social norms. And I said, because I wonder if this isn't a lot more normal than we give this credit for, to have these experiences and to experience what people put as paranormal, or, something that's out of the ordinary, or, these spirit experiences that are very much the norm for a lot of people, and how we experience them, whether or not it's through hearing or seeing or smelling or, whatever sense it comes to us as, or multiple senses. It's really neat to see that as soon as that conversation got cracked, the amount of contribution, the sheer amount of people who were just like, oh yeah, let me tell you, this happened to me, and I shared a dream with somebody, and we were telling each other, and I swear it happened, and just waiting for it to be debunked. And nobody was debunking it. Everybody was like, oh yeah, me too, this happened to me. And
so that is the norm.
That has become the norm. And I think what's bizarre is that just like anything that seemingly just didn't get talked about, it kind of got shelved. And I think it's time. I think it's time to talk about these things. And, even in school, right? Where, hey, we're studying Macbeth, which has some paranormal activity in it. And yet, but don't talk about that portion of it. And it's like, no, but we will, because that's what people are experiencing. And it's worthy of a conversation. Because this boy today, for the first time in I don't even know how long, got to feel like he wasn't weird, got to feel like he belonged. And I could see, he actually had tears in his eyes, when he was talking to me. And I just thought, it's time. It's time to have a conversation and allow the conversations to come forward and come from a place of complete acceptance. And that's what I said to him, because he kept saying, it's so weird. It's just so weird, and it wigs me out. And these are the words he's using. And I just said to him, what if you could just not judge it? What if you could just come from curious and let it be? What then? What could we create? This is so important and so significant, because we have so many kids that are not being heard. And there's a huge wave in the education system right now about teaching the whole learner, looking at the emotional side. We're looking at the mental side. We're looking at, physical learners. So we've got phys ed in place, and we've got the breathing room now for the emotional piece. And, people are feeling like that mental health piece is really, really important. But we still don't have the spiritual side coming forward, unless you're Indigenous. And if you're Indigenous, you have an opportunity to drum or experience those kind of things. However, for the regular, everyday kid, whatever that might be, I feel like it needs to happen. It needs to come forward. And maybe if this part came forward, then the mental health piece wouldn't be so big, right? They wouldn't feel like they're going crazy, or they wouldn't feel like they're not heard, or their voice doesn't matter. It does matter. It absolutely matters. And these experiences that they have shouldn't be discounted. they should come forward and be spoken of. And, whether or not you can get around the why or find the how or, all of those other questions that end up coming up, well, at least they're coming up. But it doesn't have to be something that's in a closet or in the dark anymore, Bring it out of the dark.
Well, thank you, Jody. And it's so interesting how you had these experiences today, just as you knew that we were going to have this conversation. And you learned that just creating space in your classroom for the kids to normalize their experiences made a powerful difference.
Truly.
So in moving forward, how can we create more spaces for people to talk about this? What can we do as a community?
I think it just begins with having the conversation even at home. A lot of my students who share these stories with me are like, oh, my mom does this too, or my dad. So I do think that those conversations are happening somewhat, but I think that, maybe not sloughing them off if they come up in school, like, oh, we're getting off topic, or because that's the juicy stuff, right? That's the whole learner piece. That's the stuff where we really get to be in relationship with our students and get to know them on a deeper level and understand. When I understand these parts of my students, I understand how to reach them as a learner better. Right? Because now I know if they're spirit dominant that they might need a little bit more structure. Right? They might need a little more guidance because it won't come to them naturally, right? And so it's like, oh, okay. They also might need a gentler approach because they're super sensitive, right? So it's like, and not like, ooh, I'm a wimpy sensitive, like sensitive as in I can sense from all my senses, I can feel what's going on. And that's actually a cool gift. Instead of something that we shame as being weak or wimpy or, you've got an incredible gift that you can develop if you'd like, but I just want you to know that I see you and I hear you. And as soon as students feel seen and heard, they feel valued. And anybody, wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
Ultimately just want to be, valued for being who we are.
And understood.
Yes. Have a sense of understanding. It's such a beautiful thing. And then we can see the beauty in everybody. And just maybe it would break down some barriers around segregation and around, this whole clique thing that happens in high schools and this lack of acceptance and, just accepting people for who they are, and actually celebrating those things that make us special.
Well, thank you, Jody. And so we're hoping that you can leave your comments below and join in our conversation because Jody and I will be having lots of upcoming conversations because it's one of the topics that fascinates us. So leave your comments and I'll send them off to Jody so she can join in them too. And we really appreciate that you showed up today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.